So let's start with the Trapper. I think my issue with the Trapper and his archives really was just that we already knew everything that was shown to us. We knew his dad wasn't a particularly nice bloke. We knew that he wasn't a particularly nice bloke. We knew that he kind of got on with some of the miners occasionally until he decided to kill them all. And that's kind of it. We don't really learn anything. And this is my problem with the archives. I think they should either do one of two things. Either one, tell us something about the characters that we really had no idea about, or two, tell us something about the actual modern day in the entity's realm. We don't really care as much about the past of some of these characters. What's much more interesting is how they're interacting within the entity's realm. And that's why I've got some kind of weird and interesting ideas for the future ones. However, I understand why this first one, maybe they wanted to play it safe. This was a totally new thing, the archives. But I also felt quite deflated when I saw the Trappers, and I thought, oh, that's what we're doing, huh? So anyway, this is how I would do the Trappers archive. I would set this one in the entity's realm, modern day. However, I would jump back and forth between the past and now. So what I would do is I would do the writing, that guy reads out, that Evan was blah 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 blah. I would take that and I would do that as the past and the cutscene as the entity's realm now. So let me explain. So my story would look something like this. So it would start with the idea of Evan in the past. Perhaps he was when he was, a teenager, a young man working in his dad's mining corporation. And let's say that there was a woman, and he kind of took a bit of an interest in her, and talk about how he hadn't really been interested in other girls before, and he was a good-looking, strong guy, but he didn't really have that kind of interest until her. And the reason that he liked her was because she's quite muscular, she's quite strong, independent. You could talk about how, I don't know, some guy hits her in the cafeteria and she kind of like fucks him up big time, and Evan's like, "Auga," something like that. And talk about that in the archives, talk about how maybe they start a romance, and talk about how ultimately he fucks up because she sees him again in the cafeteria or something. Maybe some guy talks about her, disrespects her, and talk about how in the story say that this guy, basically Evan just fucked him up, like he couldn't handle through jealousy and rage and all this stuff, and this woman is horrified and runs out. And then with the last part of the archive, right before we get the video clip, we talk about Evan. He's waiting for a trial. He's in a cell of some kind, waiting to be brought in for a trial. And then he hears that humming of another beast of the night that is humming away, and it's really irritating him. Now, me and you, the player, know that that's Anna the Huntress, but obviously, keep the suspense. So, and he's just getting like pissed off, and the archive is just him, just like, oh my god, I want to shut that bitch up. And then he looks over at the cell, and like he sees her, and she's like, obviously Anna's like a big woman, she's strong, and all this stuff, and he's kind of like, ooh, auga. He's kind of like, okay, this is good stuff, actually. But he's like conflicted because he's like raged and angry about the humming, and it's getting on his nerves. And then he kind of has like that painful memory that we just learned about, so it all links. And he's like getting a bit pissed off, and like he continually saying like stop, and she doesn't acknowledge him, and he's getting more and more angry. And then the bars disappear, the cage bars disappear, and then we get the cutscene. So the cutscene is the bars disappear, and you see Evan, like you see a bit of conflict on well, not you see a moment of hesitancy. He's considering, what do I do here? And then he loses it. The humming gets louder, and he charges at her. He charges it with anger and rage, and he goes to grab her, and she disappears. And then he gets up, and he looks around, and he's in a trial. And he catches the eye of idle Meg Thomas or Jake Park or whoever, and they look, and he just has this look of fury, and then he charges. So why is this archive at all interesting? Well, I think it tells us some really good stuff, and this is the kind of stuff that I think we want to learn from these archives. It tells us that Evan is capable of love. It tells us that he's heterosexual, which is of interest itself. It tells us that he's into strong women, and that's what he identified with. It tells us that he couldn't handle his rage, and that's what caused him to lose his only relationship he's ever had. And you could do like a romantic cosmetic, by the way, for him, so you could put him in like a suit that they wore on their first date or something really different. These archives should be fucking game-changing. You're like, whoa, we learned a lot of stuff here. But it also tells us that the entity fucks with the killers, and that it tries to get them all pissed off before a trial, which I think is really interesting. It would make me go, I wonder how he pisses off the other killers, and get you speculating and thinking. And that's what I think the archive should have done, is made us think, made us go, what's going on in this world? Like, it's crazy, you know? And that's what they really failed to do. So that's my idea for Evans' initial one, and I think that's a pretty interesting start. But I'm going to flip over to the survivor side now, and let's have a look at Claudette.